Hello everyone, welcome to another slightly different video. We're doing a lot of these lately, aren't we? But hey, hopefully you're enjoying them. We're going to look at the Le Mans daily race scene Gran Turismo today, because I imagine a fair few of you are struggling with the penalties. Specifically the track limit penalties. Obviously the contact penalties now no longer exist. Well, they do exist, but you have to absolutely launch somebody into the next millennium to get a penalty. But anyway, let's get back to the track limit penalties. They are a little bit frustrating at Le Mans. However, there are ways to avoid the track penalties, and I'm going to discuss that in this video. How to avoid, where to take risks, where not to take risks at Le Mans, and how you can minimise those track limit penalties where possible. Now, you can't get rid of them completely because the game also judges this based on AI speed. However, you can reduce that risk significantly. Let's jump to the first corner first of all, where it's very obvious where you push it and don't push it. Here we are then. Now we're just leaving the Ford Chicane. It's going to head towards turn 1, and I'm purposely going to cut it now. We're not going to cut it a lot, and the reason being is I want to demonstrate that this is the risky part of turn 1, okay? I'm going to turn 1 the entire chicane. So as you come in here, this is quite often a thing you can do, and then you don't hit the second apex there, and instantly a penalty. You know it's the first corner when the penalty is just as you leave the chicane, basically. That's when you know it's a penalty. Now, the critical thing with turn 1, and this is the thing you have to remember when racing turn 1, so we just reverse back here, is that when you're at this point here, turn 1, the first turn, the white line is the track limits here. Nothing else. Not curbing like in most situations. It's the white line. You go 3 wheels over that white line. Generally speaking, you're going to get a penalty. There are slight ways to avoid this, but they become quite complicated and you'll more than likely lose time in most situations. So, turn 1 here. Do not push the first apex. Just make sure you have very clear 2 wheels on the outside of that white line. It's very much a case of just take it nice and easy for that first part. The second part is where you can risk it. So let's jump to that now. Here we are then, and let's go for some cutting at turn 2. So first of all, we're going to make sure 2 wheels on the outside of that wide line. And look at that, we use all the curb then on the inside. Out we go. Do we get a penalty though? That is the question. No, we don't. So let's just brake here. And let's try again. So I'm going to start trying to push the limits here. So I mean, you can risk a lot more with this second turn than the first turn. Again, we come into here. We make sure 2 wheels just on the outside of the white line there. Once again, we cut the inside, and do we get a penalty? Well, the answer is no, we don't. Now, at this point, I am trying to actually get a penalty, and I'm really struggling to get that penalty. So in we go again, in towards turn 1 we go. We just run a little bit wider this time. We go for a bit more of a cut there. Look at that. Huge amount of cutting there. And we continue on out there. Now, in my opinion, that would have been a penalty if I did it a little bit quicker. But I'll get onto that in a second. Finally, here we go. We are going to get a penalty this run, thankfully. So again, once into turn 1 we go, and then in towards the right we go. So we just go over the curb there, leave the corner, and as we head down the hill here, now we know it's via that second part of the chicane there that we got the track penalty half a second. And as you can see here, we now have a wheel over the curb there. We have a wheel over the curb, which is why we get the penalty. The curb seems to be the track limit on the second chicane. Not always. And this is where it gets complicated, because if you absolutely annihilate this, I mean nail it, then sometimes the track limit will give you a penalty because you've done it so well. And that's compared to the AI. But in terms of just pure track limits, we can see here we can abuse this a lot more. So when I'm talking about reducing risk here at Le Mans, do not try and risk cutting the first part of the chicane. Risk the second part if you're going to risk it. You just saw there, I was trying to get a penalty and I failed multiple times until I eventually got one. And I was properly pushing track limits. You can see that here, and I eventually got one. So that is the first chicane. That's how you try and avoid track limits at the first chicane at Le Mans. We're going to look at Tetra Rouge now. Tetra Rouge is fairly black and white on the exit. So yeah, let's head there now. So Tetra Rouge then. This one is very annoying because in real life they are allowed to do this, and yet in the game we are not allowed to do this. So heading towards Tetra Rouge then. Watch out for cutting the inside, of course. But on the exit, notice we just went over the white line there. Only just. We are about to get our penalty. There you go. You can see that, 0.5. Ignoring the track limits. So, where are the track limits? Well, I just mentioned it. It is literally the white line. If you go over that white line on the exit, the game doesn't like it and gives you a penalty. Now, I don't mind it in the sense that it's very black and white. You know, I'm over the white line, it's a penalty. If I'm inside it, it's not a penalty. I kind of like that. It is very frustrating because in real life they are allowed to run wide here. However, we get our answer very quickly. So I would avoid risking Tetra Rouge at all cost here. It will cost you more time if you get a penalty. So let's look at it now without getting the penalty. And I will explain just again why it just... There's no need to risk this corner. It's better to do it safe than to absolutely risk it. So once again, coming through here, we're going to go nearly wide. And as you see there, I've just paused it exactly where we peak in terms of our exit. And we are on the white line, so we won't get a penalty here. Now, the reason you don't want to risk it is because we're about to head onto the Mulsanne Straight here. Now, initially, yes, the initial part of this Mulsanne Straight will give you an advantage. But as you go down the Mulsanne, your speed increase is going to decrease because you're hitting that air resistance. So where you may lose 5 miles an hour on the apex, by the time you get to the next corner, you're only maybe 1 mile an hour down. You can see it slowly starting to creep up. It's not that massive in comparison. So it's better not to risk it, avoid that penalty, and then continue on with your race, because getting a penalty on the Mulsanne Straight, absolute killer. That will cost you more time than anything else. I promise you this. It will cost you more time. But that is Tetra Rouge. Let's head then for the double chicane now on the Mulsanne. This is going to be the final part where I'm going to talk about risking, not risking, and where to actually put your car and not put your car. Let's continue on then to the first chicane here. So we're just going to come in as you would normally expect to. You click the apex there, and we're just going to run slightly wide there across the white line, but interestingly inside the curb there. We're not overextending ourselves onto the curb or even over it, and we get a track limit penalty there. Ow, I've just whacked my thumb. Finger, sorry, how weird's that? Anyway, let's continue on down towards the second chicane here. We're going to do the exact same situation as we did on the first chicane, just to show you it's consistent in terms of these chicanes. So again, just normal, we're taking the normal line here. On the exit, we're just going to go a little bit more, but again, we're on the inside of the curb, as in inside of the circuit where you would deem it in terms of the curb, but we're on the outside of the white line. As you see, we get a track limit penalty there as well, so that went up to a second. So we just advance it all the way back to this chicane here. And critically here, you can see, as I say, I just wanted to point out here, I'm on the inside of the curb, so I'm not overextending myself over that curb there, and I'm on the outside of the white line. Now that's a problem, and it's only on the exits of the chicane, okay? On the inner parts of the chicanes on the Mulsanne, you don't get penalties for crossing the white line. It's only on the exit, so keep that in mind when exiting the corner here. Be safe on the exit, risk it more on the entry to the corner, and that will actually help your exit to some extent anyway, because it should pull you around a little bit. Just to show you that, let's jump to that now. So here we go in towards the first turn at the chicane. We go. Look at that. We're abusing the white line on the first two. Not necessarily that second part, actually. And then not on the exit there. We keep 2 wheels outside the white line. Oh, look. No penalty. That's what I mean. You can abuse the first 2 parts of each chicane. I'm going to do the exact same thing at the second one. These are identical in terms of how the track limits work. So if you do the same on one, you should be able to do the same on the other. I have tested this multiple times, and it seems to be the case. In towards the braking zone we go here in the Peugeot. Again, a full abuse there over the white line, full abuse there over the white line. Then we're going to try and straighten up as best as we can. Oh look, we just went over the white line. Surely that's a penalty. No, and I'll explain why in just a second, because just to show you we didn't get a penalty. So when we get to this point here, so this is the point where we're already on the curb, but we're just about to go over that white line. Only just about to go over it. And the reason why we don't get a penalty in this situation is because the corner's already started happening. So as they've drawn it, obviously at that point it's fine. Before the curb going over the white line, that's where the track limit is. After the curb, it doesn't seem to happen at all because it deems that you're already in the turn. So happy days, we can carry on with that situation. So, you know, you saw we abuse the chicane in terms of the first 2 parts, and we're very careful on the exit. And that's the best way to do it, you know, slow in, fast out. We all know that mantra in terms of racing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to advance a bit further on, just to talk about a couple more risky corners. They're not as risky, because it's something you don't really do on these corners. So I just figured there's no point in actually stop these situations. And I can just explain them briefly when we get to them. Because I know I did the track guide in the daily race guide. However, or the weekly race guide, should I say. However, it's always best to just recover something like this because I think it's worthwhile, especially this weekend. You know, there's not that many good daily races there, and this is probably going to be your best shout. So coming into Indianapolis, never cut the curb there. Notice the greyish where the white line used to be. That is your track limit there. So just be careful of that on that corner, and then the rest of Indianapolis is fine. on ours. There's no track limits to worry about here. Maybe on the exit, but if you're over the exit at that point, you're more risking sliding than actually any track limits there at all. But we keep it nice and steady. Now the only other real potential risk really is going to be the exit of the Porsche curves. So when we get there in a second, I don't know why I haven't fast forwarded this, but we'll just experience the Porsche curves anyway in this Peugeot. In we go, nice and easy, happy days. I love the Porsche curves, amazing to watch in real life as well. So through here we go, just avoiding the barrier there, and then we're going to drop a gear, go a little bit too deep here. So the exit of the Porsche curves here is what I'm talking about here. So you can cut quite a lot to the left, but here is exactly the same as Tetra Rouge. It's the white line. If you go over that white line, you are risking so much. So it's best not to risk it there. Cut more of the inside of the curb. Avoid running too wide on the outside there, and you should be fine. Now the 4 chicanes coming up. I do try and I basically push the board here and just see, oh, what, am I going to get a penalty there? Am I going to get a penalty there? And are we going to get a penalty here or here? Well, we got one for the previous one there, and then we just went off the track. So I was just being a bit of a pleb there, just out of curiosity, because you're never really going to push that hard into here. Again, I just cut it there just to get an idea. I don't actually get a penalty there this time. You can cut more on that last little bit there as well. But in general, you can push quite a lot in the 4 chicanes, and you're not really going to get a penalty. You have to properly cut in order to get a penalty. As I say though, the main risk areas on this circuit, turn 1, do not cut the first part of the chicane. You can cut a lot more the second. Tetra Rouge, do not risk the exit. Just take it nice and easy through Tetra Rouge. And then the Mulsanne chicanes, really abuse the first 2 parts of the chicane. Be careful on exits, because that's where the penalty is given, not the start of the chicanes. But that is going to be it here for avoiding track penalties, track limits at Le Mans. Hopefully this helps you in the weekly races this weekend, or any future Le Mans races that you have. That's going to be it for me now, folks. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in another video or live stream very soon.